If you turn your Bibles to Daniel chapter 7, verses 7 and 8 tonight, we are studying the four beasts of Daniel, and this is our fifth part in our study. So, from Daniel 7, verse 7, it says, "After this I saw in the night visions, and behold, a fourth beast, dreadful and terrible, exceedingly strong. It had huge iron teeth. It was devouring, breaking in pieces, and trampling the residue with its feet. It was different from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. I was considering the horns, and there was another horn, a little one, coming up among them, before whom 3 of the first horns were plucked out by the roots. And there in this horn were eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking pompous words." Thus far in Daniel's dream, we've encountered a lion, a bear, and a leopard, which are analogous to the head of gold, the chest of silver, and the waist of bronze in the dream of Nebuchadnezzar. And these images represent, in order, the Babylonian, Persian, and Greek empires. We now come to the last beast in Daniel's dream, which we know must correspond with the legs of iron and feet mixed with iron and clay in Nebuchadnezzar's dream, which was the Roman Empire. This beast, while not defying description, is difficult to classify. We are told only that it has head and feet. The head is hideous because it has horrible iron teeth. The iron teeth are consistent in substance with the iron legs of Nebuchadnezzar's image, which indicates Rome. The head of this beast has 10 horns, and eventually an 11th horn comes up to pluck out 3 of the other horns. This horn also has eyes like a man's eyes, and a mouth that speaks pompous words. Now we know this animal has feet because Daniel saw it trampling with its feet. However, we are not told how many feet it has, but the fact that it does have feet must not be significant. This is all the description that we have of the appearance of this beast. In most instances, this beast is pictured in the charts of prophecy teachers as a dragon-like animal. If you've read any books on prophecies from Daniel, if you've heard any preaching of the prophecies of Daniel, and you've seen graphs and charts and things like this, you'll almost always find this particular beast depicted in the form of a dragon or a dragon-like animal. If you've ever seen the movie Godzilla, you can see a resemblance between that monster in the movie and this monster in Daniel's dream as depicted on these charts. So, next time you happen to see some prophecy teacher on television or read a book on prophecy from Daniel and you look at this beast, you'll almost always see Godzilla appearing, okay? Now, the reason this beast is depicted in the likeness of a dragon is because prophecy teachers associate this beast with the dragon of Revelation chapter 12. The dragon of Revelation 12, however, is somewhat different than Daniel's beast. Daniel's beast and the Revelation dragon both have 10 horns, but that is where the similarity ends. The Revelation dragon has 7 heads, while Daniel's beast appears to have only 1 head. And in fact, in verse 20 of chapter 7, Daniel speaks of its head, singular. Daniel's beast has feet, but there is no mention of a tail in Daniel's dream. The Revelation dragon has a tail, but there's no mention of feet. But I do suppose it is logical to think that that dragon would have feet, since most pictures you see of dragons, the dragons do have feet. And finally, the Revelation dragon is red in color, but Daniel assigns no color to his beast. These differences may be inconsequential, but we should note that there are differences between Daniel's beast and the dragon of Revelation. Therefore, we can conclude that they are not the same thing. Prophetically, though, there is a relationship between Daniel's beast and the dragon of Revelation, but they again are not one and the same. They are different. In Daniel's dream, this beast is the Roman Empire as it impacts the land of the Jews. In Revelation, the red dragon represents the spirit of religion associated with non-Christian religions. These beasts' association with Rome is that it was the ruling empire at the beginning of the Revelation narrative, and it was the protector and champion of non-Christian religion at the time. So both involve Rome, but the Revelation dragon is a religious spirit, the spirit of non-Christian religion, of which Rome was the champion at the time. Most of the vision in Daniel chapter 7 has to do with this fourth beast. We saw its strong but divided nature in Nebuchadnezzar's dream. And here we learn more about its cruelty and its vicious nature. You'll notice that each of these beasts in this vision is cruel and vicious, as we discussed earlier when we talked about the sea and the earth, the viciousness and the low standing of these beasts. You'll also notice that each succeeding beast is more vicious and cruel than its predecessor. The Persians were more vicious and cruel than the Babylonians. The Greeks were more vicious and cruel than the Persians. And now we come to the Romans, and they are the most cruel and most vicious of them all. Daniel says of this beast, it is dreadful and terrible, exceedingly strong. The Hebrew word dreadful is dekal, which means to fear. It denotes the creeping along or going out with a quiet gait like a timid person. Okay? Now this does not mean that this beast is timid itself. Instead, this beast terrifies people so that they slink away from it in fear. So as this Roman beast comes on the scene, people are so much in dread of it that they slink away from it in fear. It is dreadful. It inspires dread in people. The Hebrew word terrible is emtoni, and it appears only here in the entire Bible. It is translated terrible in our Bibles, but its literal meaning is well-loined. Well-loined. Now, does that mean anything to you in English? Not American English, does it? So, it's not a common expression for us in our language, but it's better understood by the word burly, which means great in bodily size, stout, sturdy. So if I say to you that somebody is a burly person, you get this image of Bluto. Remember Bluto from the Popeye comics? Just big, husky guy. Or maybe you think of Arnold Schwarzenegger in some of his movies where he's the tough guy, ripping up tree trunks and shooting the big guns. A big, burly guy, well-loined. Exceedingly strong is two Hebrew words. The first one, yatir, meaning preeminent or very great, and takit, meaning hard, strong. So as we put these Hebrew words together, we learn that the Roman Empire as it comes on the scene is a big and powerful empire that strikes fear into the hearts of all it encounters, subduing them with very little effort. The iron teeth of this beast are its tools of destruction. This is obviously the Roman legions by which Rome extended its rule over the then known world. History lets us know how Rome went out in its legions and just tromped over enemy after enemy after enemy. Adam Clarke comments about this beast. He writes, "This is allowed in all hands to be the Roman Empire. It was dreadful, terrible, and exceeding strong. It devoured and brake in pieces and stamped the residue, that is, the remains of the former kingdoms, with its feet. It reduced Macedon into a Roman province about 168 years before Christ. The kingdom of Pergamus about 133 years. Syria about 65. And Egypt about 30 years before Christ. And besides the remains of the Macedonian Empire, it subdued many other provinces and kingdoms, so that it might, by a very usual figure, be said to devour the whole earth, to tread it down and break it to pieces, and became, in effect, what the Roman writers delight to call it, the empire of the whole world." Daniel remarks that this beast was different from all the beasts that were before it. He notes that it has 10 horns, but this is not why this beast is different. Each one is different in its own ways. You remember a lion with wings? I mean, how many lions have you ever seen with wings? Have you ever seen a leopard with 4 heads and 4 wings? I mean, those are strange animals. So that this beast has 10 horns shouldn't really surprise us because, hey, each of these animals is unique and different in some way, shape, or form. The difference is primarily in its form of government, which was both its strength and its weaknesses. The Babylonian and Persian empires were monarchies having hereditary kings with absolute rule. That can be strong, but it leads to weakness because sons are not necessarily like their fathers, and grandsons are not necessarily like their grandfathers. Hereditary monarchies tend to weaken over time, and the kings that inherit the kingdom never had to work for it. They don't really have to do much to keep the kingdom. They turned into playboys, and they squander away all the wealth and strength of their kingdom. So the fact that those two kingdoms were hereditary monarchies was a weakness that really led to their downfall and overthrow. The Greek Empire was like a monarchy under Alexander. He was the absolute ruler. When he died, the kingdom was divided into 4 sections, each with a ruling hereditary ruler. So we saw that kingdom not being one kingdom, but divided into 4, and in each having hereditary kings. The fact that it was divided and that its rule was hereditary weakened it even more. What makes the Roman system of government different from all others is the fact that it was a republic. It did have an emperor. We have a president. Rome had an emperor. Israel today has a prime minister. Rome had an emperor. Okay, he was the head of state. But Rome also had an elected senate that worked in conjunction with the emperor. And the office of emperor was not hereditary. The emperor was chosen. And the emperor worked in conjunction with the senate so that there was no one absolute ruler over the Roman Empire. So this form of government was a source of strength as the national leadership changed from time to time. When weakness came into the emperors, they could be displaced and a strong emperor could come in. And then when time went by and a weak emperor came in, they could vote in a stronger emperor. You had the Senate that was being constantly elected and new people coming on, so that there wasn't this hereditary imbecility that is inherent in monarchies and rule like that. So this, to a degree, overcame the corruption and weakness inherent in hereditary monarchies. Adam Clarke again comments, "It," meaning the fourth beast, "was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, not only in its republican form of government, but also in power and greatness, its extent of dominion, and the length of its duration." The Roman Empire had more power than all the empires before it. Now you recall, Greece was powerful, but Greece was so successful because of the intelligence of Alexander. He knew what fight to pick and how to fight it. But with Rome, that didn't make that much difference because they had legions. They could just tromp over a country. Greatness, the extent of its dominion. Rome ruled the entire then known world. Okay? Babylon ruled what it knew of the world, but it was small compared to Rome. Persia had a little bit more, but it was still small compared to Rome. Greece had much more than Persia, but Greece was very small when you compared it to the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire covered all Europe, North Africa, and what we know as the Middle East, and the length of its duration. The Roman Empire lasted into the 5th century AD, the longest of any of and all of these other worldwide empires before it. So it was different in all these than all these other beasts before it. The 10 horns of this beast is the subject of much discussion among prophecy teachers. I'm not going to discuss every single interpretation of it. The most common explanation is that these horns are the 10 divisions of the Roman Empire. Remember, we talked about that when we talked about the toes of Nebuchadnezzar's image, how that some people feel that those are the 10 divisions of the Roman Empire after it fell to the barbarian kingdoms. Recall that the first principle of Daniel's prophecy is that they concern the impact of the 4 worldwide empires on the Jews up to the coming of Messiah. The vision of the Roman Empire happened long after the coming of Messiah, and it cannot be factored into the events in Daniel's prophecies. So the 10 horns of this beast, even though it is the Roman Empire, are not the 10 divisions of the Roman Empire under the barbarian kingdoms. So, in Daniel's dream, also there's evidence that these 10 horns cannot be the 10 barbarian kingdoms. Because, if you've read this chapter, the person called the Ancient of Days confronts this beast, its horns, and the special 11th horn that arises. And that is important. That is key to knowing who the horns are, if they're at least important at all, and especially who the 11th special horn that comes up is important. So to be consistent with Nebuchadnezzar's dream and with history, the events involving the horns have to be resolved with the coming of the kingdom of God in the days of Christ on earth. We won't talk about any other explanations at this point in time. Our next lesson, we'll go into the 10 horns, and especially this one special 11th horn that comes up, and the confrontation with the Ancient of Days, and someone that Daniel identifies as the Son of Man. So come back and we will learn about these things. Thank you.